Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. We are going to help you move your life forward, realize some things in yourself that you probably had no idea existed. And that is the path to transformation. Why do you want to do that? Oh, I don't know. Let's say you want to have the job you always wanted. You want to be with the perfect person you always wanted. You want abundance in your life. You just want to feel that things are connecting. Might have the feeling of, I know there's more out there, but I don't know how to achieve it. I can't figure this out. There's probably a reason for that, and it comes from within. The inner work is what we're going to look at today, and so much more. And she helps people with this all the time. Hello to the Future. That's the name of her practice. Hello Future Healing. Danielle Marie joins us here on the program today. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me. And
Wonderful to
hello
have you
to
here. Yeah.
and hello to everyone out there.
Hello Future. Hello to everyone. So let's go right there. Now, you help people with something called inner work. How do you define inner work?
I define it as, I guess, to give a little visual perspective,
Sure.
as everything on the outside is a reflection of what's on the inside. So everything you see in your life, everything you're experiencing and going through, there's under layers through past traumas, beliefs, impressions,
Sure.
society.
So let's talk about those traumas because that's, I believe, very impactful in a lot of what we're talking about and what holds people back. And when somebody hears the word trauma right away, they're like, oh, no, no, I didn't deal with any traumas in my life when I was younger. No, you probably did. I believe we all did. But there are big T traumas. There's the little T traumas. The big T could be the passing of a relative, something major, the little T. And correct me on any of this. This is just my theory. Little T got bullied on the playground once or multiple times. That would be me. And that had an impact on your life, but you don't realize that that's what's got you stuck here in the adult world. But it all goes back to when you were, I don't know, 7 years old.
Yes, exactly. That's a wonderful example.
Hmm.
Other areas, especially in relationships, whether it's family, friendships, a lover, repeating cycles is a huge sign that there's inner work to be done.
Hmm.
And if you think about when you go into a relationship, you're really not going in with a clean slate. You've got all this luggage back here that's invisible that you're carrying, where it resides in the body,
Yep.
whether it's in the mind, physically, emotionally. And I don't like to use the word triggers. I like to call them blessing buttons.
I never heard of it said that way. And that's such a nice way to put it because it is a blessing that something came up because what's going to happen? You're going to learn from it.
Exactly. And if you
Hmm.
don't, it'll just keep happening. And people tend to notice that more often in the types of relationships and people that they attract into their lives.
Yes. And how many times do you hear, especially women will say, I don't know what it is. There's no good guys out there. They're all the same ones. I meet the same ones all the time. They're like losers. I don't get it. There's just nobody good out there. And then you walk away from it. Well, there's probably a reason that a woman may be attracting those types of men, right?
Exactly. Especially if a woman is nurturing and empathic. Nurses are notorious, as in my field, because you pour out to others and you're
Mm.
nurturing everyone around you, but you're emptying your cup. You're not nurturing and loving yourself. And self-love is a huge issue in the world today because people, society will say that going to get your hair, your nails done, go shopping, buy you something nice. Those are types of self-love, but that's not really where it needs to come from. It needs to be inside the heart. And a lot of people don't even know how to connect to their heart anymore.
So True. And I was one of those people until I started talking to
Me
someone
too.
like you. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I want your story in a second, but I want to go back to what you said just a moment ago in terms of people showing up and the nurse. So I dated a nurse 2 years ago for about 6 months. We really, it was fun. We're still friends, but every third day she would have to take the day off. And she's like, I can't. I'm so beat. I said, you're an empath. You're taking on everybody's energy and it's draining you down. Side note, I would call everybody else out on the empath thing. I said, you realize you're an empath? I bet you probably don't even know you're an empath. A few months ago, I took a strength assessment test. I'm on the board of the Girl Scouts, and they said, everybody
Um,
here, take a test. We want to see what your strengths are, and it'll be a fun little session. Sure. So I take it, bunch of questions, rapid fire, half hour online. Just click the answer. Out of 34 strengths, number one for me was communication. All right, I get it. I've been doing this since I was a kid, literally. Number two, empath. I didn't even know. But I feel like I get pulled down and I'm always looking to help other people. I figured, all right, it's probably like 12 on the list of 34. No, number two. So the empath thing, I guess. Would you say that's you high up there on the list of your strengths?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought it was a curse growing up because I didn't understand it
Yeah.
until I went through everything. And once you do the inner healing, you can turn it into that superpower.
Yeah.
So your weaknesses, when you do your inner healing, they actually become your medicine to heal. And then you can help others by sharing your experiences
Yep.
and your gifts in the world.
Yeah. When I called it a strength a moment ago, I also wanted to say a curse as well. Because it's but until you figure this stuff out and use it to your best advantage, and protect yourself too.
Yes.
Danielle, give me your journey. How did you get to this point where you're helping people with this insight and energy healing and all of it?
How far back would you like to start? How much time do we have?
Okay, all right. You know what? Um, when I first embarked on my journey, it was hypnotherapy, and I said, "Take me back to my childhood." Like, not that it was a bad childhood, but I was like, "It all starts there." So why
It
don't we go?
does.
Why don't we start there for you?
It really does. Well, I was the only girl in a family with three brothers that I knew of at the time. And my mother, I believe, is on the autism scale. She was under nurturing, and my father was an alcoholic.
Mm,
So my parents got divorced at an early age, and my father took us and we moved up home where the rest of the family was. And he ended up abandoning us shortly thereafter due to the alcoholism.
mm.
I would have to say, though, before that, my grandma again.
Your grandma.
My grandma again. She is one of the strongest women I've ever known. And her love of God that she shared with us as children and growing up and bringing it down to our level as kids
Mm,
just impacted me so much to create that relationship as a child with God and with her. But when I was 4 years old, I'm sorry, 6 years old, I had an incident and a neighbor who we didn't know had someone visiting from out of state. And we were outside running around the house playing. And that gentleman came over and grabbed me and um, sexually molested me, is the correct terminology. And at that time, that's very traumatic. So it started to open up more things inside of me. And then with my parents, I had to learn how to read the energy of what was going on around me in order to keep myself safe. And then went up there and My father abandoned us, of course, and he has his own path, his own journey. And I forgave him a long, long time ago for that. And one set of our grandparents took me and my three brothers in, and they had us for probably about 6 months. And then my other grandmother took us in, and my aunt and uncle moved in and started their family, and we stayed with them for 3 years. Then we were returned to our biological mother, who was with a man who sexually abused me later. And I got taken away. I got put in protective custody. And then the court system couldn't convict him, and I got sent back after 6 months of protective custody. So that was very hard for a 14-year-old girl whose mother didn't believe her and going through all that. Well, she gave me and my younger brother back to our father and abandoned my two other brothers. And by the time I was 16, I became pregnant, and I was forced with a decision to have an abortion or to leave. So I chose my child and I left. I've been on my own since I was 16. I was moved around a lot as a child, even before the divorce and things. So creating relationships and stability in my life wasn't foundational for me. And being on my own at 16 really made me grow up quickly. I wasn't emancipated. I was just kicked out. So the school system would not let me complete my education. So as soon as I turned 18, I went to take a placement test. And I got the phone call, and I was expecting, here I was, ninth grade dropout. I was expecting to have to take years of courses to be able to get my GED. And they called me and congratulated me. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, you placed so high, you get your GED. You don't have to take any courses. And that just blew me away. But
Wow.
then about the age 16, I had a lot of female problems. No surprise. Sexual abuse and traumas, they surface in the body when they're not dealt with. And I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. I ended up having endometriosis and polycystic ovaries really bad. And the doctors told me I should have never gotten pregnant in the first place. So my first daughter was a blessing. I ended up going through 13 female surgeries.
Wow.
Yes. They did a partial hysterectomy because I was so young. They wanted to leave one ovary for the estrogen, but they ended up having to go back in and remove it. When my daughters were 4 and 6, I got sat down by the doctors and told that I had a tumor in my abdomen. And by the scans, it was multicellular, and that they weren't giving me any more than 6 months to live. That gave me immense grief. I wasn't fearful to die myself, but my children. And being a single mother, I knew their father would be there for them, of course. But my girls needed a mom. They needed somebody loving and caring and nurturing. I didn't want them to experience anything in life that I had. And went into surgery. The specialist came out and she said, it's a miracle. And I said, what do you mean it's a miracle? And she said, we couldn't find a tumor. So they sent me in for a scan to make sure, and it was gone.
Wow. I can't even. Um, What a journey. What a journey. And so many things identified there, how what we deal with manifests in our body,
Yes.
creates disease,
Bleeding.
potentially cancer, all the stress we're dealing with, as I've learned, gets right into the cellular level within your body. Um,
Exactly.
and you remember these things that happened when you were very young. I got to believe there's tons of people walking around out there that don't and or blocked it out, but
Correct.
it's still affecting them.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing again. Like you are a miracle.
I feel that way because that was the start of my nursing journey because of all the nurses who helped me through all the surgeries and the doctors. I had a passion that fueled. So I went to college to become a nurse. And then, ooh, I remarried. And a couple years later, which I thank God for everything that happened because it made me who I am and all the lessons and the gifts. And now it's time to go out there. But this one is a little hard. I kept attracting people in my life who were the opposite of what I really needed. And my faith had wavered. And I got married a second time. And it was emotionally abusive. He was an addict, come to find out, and an alcoholic. And when I left, we separated. We tried to get back together to mend the broken pieces, but I couldn't trust him any longer. He ended up committing suicide. So I listened to God, went through a very hard time. A lot of people blamed me. People were breaking into my home, harassing me and my children, threatening them. So I'd always wanted to move to North Carolina. I fell in love with North Carolina through Nicholas Sparks movies.
Mm,
So I came to visit, and God blessed me with a healing home, and I moved to North Carolina.
wow. Side note, I've been looking in North Carolina since I was in my 20s. Not even
It is,
kidding. No, I'm not kidding.
it's amazing.
Yeah. I get it. I don't know what it is. There's just something there. Um, your energy is amazing. Like even before your story, I feel it. I felt it. And despite everything, you seem so grounded in you in your life.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. It's sometimes we got to go through stuff to get to a certain point, but maybe that defines what our purpose is, and your purpose is to help others. Well, you identified that by becoming a nurse, but then taking it steps further, and I guess realizing all of what you offer in terms of energy healing, Reiki, shamanic healing, all of that probably came from your journey and how it helped and healed you. Would you say that?
Absolutely. For me to reach the spiritual side of it, after I moved to North Carolina, I worked in the prison system. I worked as a nurse and became the supervisor over a prison medical system. And I'll never forget it. Returned from Thanksgiving break that Monday, and I had an episode that I thought I was going to die
In the prison?
in the prison, but it wasn't from anyone else. It was myself. My body had been telling me all kinds of signs, but I wasn't listening to them. I was ignoring myself and taking care of my children, my grandchildren.
Well, sure, because you're programmed to, I got to keep going. I can't take another day off. I got to focus. I got to get this done. And then we ignore our bodies. And that could be a whole other podcast, how your body is talking to you. You just got to listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But my heart increased up to the 180s. I was passing out, had to go to the emergency room. They got me stabilized, go to see the doctor the next day, and he's thinking it's autoimmune, running all these tests. So I'm doing research as we keep testing things one after another. Had to be taken out of work, couldn't drive, couldn't walk more than 20 feet without passing out. It was very deafening, is the word I want to say.
What did they say was going on?
Well, it took months to be diagnosed. And as a nurse, I self-diagnosed myself and begged the doctors to test me for tick diseases.
Tick?
Tick diseases. He didn't want to test me because in North Carolina, there's not Lyme's disease, as they said. So finally, he ran out of straws and he tested me. And the testing came back. I'm originally from Indiana. So I had Lyme's disease, I had Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and I had typhus. And they said that as long as the Lyme's disease had been in my body, it had to be at least greater than 10 years because it affected the conduction of my heart and my whole nervous system. So I got sent to a cardiologist. They told me there was nothing they could do. They sent me to neurology, cardiology, Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins. All they could do was put me on experimental heart failure medication to try to stop the heart issue. And I took it for a little while and it just didn't feel right. I heard to stop. I had built a prayer room. In my old house, I had a stairwell. And underneath the stairwell was a closet. So I took that closet and I took one of my grandchildren's old crib beds and I put it in there and a chair and a table. And I would go in every day for several hours a day. And I would spend time reading, in devotion, meditating. That's where I learned to meditate.
Mm.
And then I started to hear again. And I remembered as a child, I always heard people talking to me that other people didn't hear. And they thought I had imaginary friends. And then I experienced Jesus coming to me and holding me in that room. And then I was led to holistic type healings, but it was practices on myself to do. And then I was led to holistic healers and guided. And it was a very long journey. I was disabled 3 months after I was taken out of work. The same day I was taken out of work, I received a certified letter that they were terminating me because I had a job that had to be filled. It was a mandatory position. I totally understood. But I had no income once that stopped, and I had to pay for my insurance out of pocket. The same day, I got a phone call. I had gotten accepted to ECU to get my doctorate that fall, but it was for the next fall. I wasn't even a student yet. I got a phone call and I got a job with a stipend, a monthly stipend, no matter how much work I did. It was online, remotely, at home. That covered exactly my insurance, $600 a month.
We're just about out of time. I don't want to end.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's quite all right. Quite all right. But you demonstrate courage, faith, resilience, and how the universe really does work. Where, and I know, people say it all the time, one door closes, another door opens. If that's not an example of that happening with that job situation, there's nothing, no better example, especially when you say on the same day. Um, wow. Uh, Thank you for being transparent and sharing all of that, because it just shows that, listen, if you can get through that stuff, we can get through our stuff with the right coaching and the right healing and all of that, which we're going to get to next time we get here. Um, Amazing, amazing. And I've experienced a little bit of that healing through Reiki and other of the modalities that you offer before we met. Um, it works, and it changes your life, and it transforms you. Danielle, what's the best way for somebody to find you?
The best way is the website, and it's hellofuturehealing.com.
HelloFutureHealing.com.
Yes.
I love that name, because
Thank
it
you.
is hello future.
Yes.
I'm going to heal. But step one is realizing and admitting to yourself that you got something to heal from. Because many of us, even if you say it to them, you can see it. You saw their childhood. You see the way they act and operate now. You see the correlation. And that's personal. In a relationship that I was in long term, they didn't accept it. It's like, clearly you need to heal from that, for life to be better. Um, I'm so looking forward next time we get together and digging into these things like Reiki, energy healing, shamanic healing, and all of that. Wonderful having you here today.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. It's been such
Oh,
a pleasure to meet you.
oh, thank you for even just giving me. Let me grab some of your energy. I'm not an energy vampire, with your permission. And we'll take that and the rest of us. Um, and thank you. And we'll catch up next time. Okay.
Okay. Thank
Thanks.
you.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.